Well, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon to people who are watching online. I've been talking about this. When we started seeing more teen violence in our communities, we ask ourselves a question that I think many people skip over. What is actually going through teenagers' heads when they see these acts of violence happening? What are they actually experiencing in their schools and with their friends? So these questions are what led me to create the Teen Advisory Council here at the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. And these high schoolers up here with me were part of our first ever group to participate. The idea is simple: find ways to reach young people with a message that means something to them. There's no better way to do that than to hear directly from them. And that's why I invited Evie, Logan, Lucy, and Jeremy here today, so you can hear it directly from them too. But first I want to tell you a little bit more about the program. The Teen Advisory Council brought together more than 24 teens with diverse backgrounds from more than 20 high schools representing 9 cities across Maricopa County. They met once a month, either in person or online, during the school year from October through May, and the goal was to close the gap between what we think teens need to hear and what they actually don't know. We talked about issues that we see in my office: teen violence, gangs, guns, and social media. But the 2 issues they chose to learn about and dive into were reckless driving and substance misuse. So those are the messages that we're here to bring you today. Starting with reckless driving, which itself is a misdemeanor, but oftentimes as a prosecutor I see that charge accompanied by much more serious felony charges like endangerment or fleeing law enforcement. Those are not simple traffic violations. While a number of these juveniles do this in stolen cars or they're involved in other criminal behavior, we learn from our teens that they and their peers don't know what to do even if the police just pull them over or if they get into a crash. So they created this pamphlet that teens can keep in their car in case they ever find themselves in that situation. And let's be honest, some adults could use this as well. And then they also created the PSA that I'm about to play for you now on the screens on the side.
They came out of nowhere. I didn't see anything.
All I could think about was how much trouble I'd be in with my parents.
My friends were telling me to go, so I did.
I panicked.
It wasn't my fault, so I left.
It wasn't my car.
I thought you only stay if someone is hurt.
It was just a small fender bender.
I felt fine.
They looked fine too.
It really wasn't a big deal, right?
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 Right? Wrong. Hit and run crashes involving teens are on the rise in Maricopa County. Whatever you're scared of in that moment, it gets worse when you run. Stay at the scene, call 911. It's the law.
So that video came entirely from them. It was their idea, their words, and their message to their peers. The second issue that they thought was important for them to address was drugs. They put together a flyer specifically to address overdoses. I have one in my hand. This is not a scare tactic, parents. It's a real answer to a real question the teens are asking. What do I do if my friend overdoses? It's a moment where we would all be tempted to panic. And even though naloxone is more accessible than ever, it doesn't do any good if you don't know how to use it. So with the right information, anyone can save a life. This flyer helps you identify signs of an overdose, and it takes you step by step through what to do if somebody is overdosing. And I want to add this: the law protects you as a good Samaritan when you call for help if someone is overdosing, even if you yourself have been using drugs. So don't run away. Call 911. Stay and talk to the paramedics and the police, because you may have critical information that they need to help your friend. So these were just a few of the topics we covered, but one thing that came up again and again was mental health. A lot of kids are internalizing problems and don't know who to talk to or where to turn for help. When young people don't have the right outlet to handle anxiety, depression, stress, or whatever they're dealing with, it can lead to the exact risky behaviors that we're talking about today. But a teen who feels supported, heard, and connected to their community makes different choices than the one who doesn't. And one of the biggest takeaways for me was seeing that when you give a young person a seat at the table, they stop feeling like a bystander and start feeling like the problems around them, that they can actually be an agent of change. So that's what happened with these teens, and that's what I want every teen in Maricopa County to feel. So if you know a teenager who wants to be part of the Teen Advisory Council at the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, applications open at the end of July, but you can sign up on our website right now to get a reminder. We'll also have the overdose handout and driving pamphlet on our website, and we'll post them on MCAO social media. So parents, please share these with your kids. Bookmark them or print them out so they can easily be accessed if needed. Our community affairs team will also be taking this information out to the communities at events so we can spread the message around Maricopa County. I can't say enough about how impressed I was with every teen involved in the council and how proud I am of everything they accomplished, but I think it's most important that you hear from them. So I'd like to invite Logan, Evie, Lucy, and Jeremy up here to talk about their experience. So first we'll hear from Logan.
Good afternoon. My name is Logan Graham, and I am a member of the Maricopa County Attorney's Office Teen Advisory Council. I joined the council because I wanted to have a voice in issues that affect myself and other teenagers in our community. Too often, decisions about the youth are made without hearing directly from the youth. This council gave me an opportunity to share our perspectives and create positive change. One topic that stood out to me was substance misuse among teens. Substance misuse can affect one's health, education, relationships, and future opportunities. Many teens face peer pressure from friends or social media daily in their lives. Through this council, it has shown me that prevention starts with education, conversations, and community support. By listening to the youth perspectives, we can help create a safer and healthier future for teens throughout Maricopa County. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Evie Tebow, and I joined Maricopa County Attorney's Office Teen Advisory Board because I've always been interested in law. This has also given me the opportunity to learn more about how the justice system affects our community. I am grateful to receive the opportunity to hear from professionals, learn real issues, and use my perspectives as a teenager. The topic that stood out to me the most is reckless driving, because I am a new driver. This has shown me how much responsibility comes with being behind the wheel. I think most teens see driving as freedom. However, it is also about making smart decisions and knowing your decisions can affect the community around you. My biggest takeaway is that being a safe driver isn't just protecting yourself, but also protecting others around you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lucy Wegener, and I got involved with this group because I'm on the board of the student-led nonprofit Arizona Students for Mental Health. And we were getting invited to more and more teen violence events, asking to speak on these topics. And what I was finding was there wasn't really one group of teenagers who were focused on specifically teen violence. And that was something I felt like our community was missing and I would like to be a part of, and eventually I found this, which is such a perfect opportunity because obviously teen violence has the biggest effect on teenagers. So this is focusing on teenage voice, and it's not just people sitting in a room talking about change, it's about finding solutions and creating actual change, which is so impactful. And one of the most important issues I feel like we discussed was digital safety, because I feel like obviously now social media plays a very unique role in society, and there's a lot of discrepancies between teenagers and their parents over how social media affects them. So getting to sit in a room and talk about the real problems that come from social media to adults is really important because it helps us determine what the issues are so that we can find solutions that directly target them and create positive change. Thank you.
My name is Jeremy Cope, and I joined the council to better serve my community. I love to serve my community. I'm a library volunteer, and I serve on this council dutifully, and I will next year too. This council's work is so important because it's not often that teens and adults get to speak to each other. Adults have this enormous life experience, especially our speakers, and can help us solve all of these problems we're seeing. But they have to know what the problems are. And it's only the teens who are in it day to day that can truly understand where the problems are and what things will work and what won't work. For example, an adult may have a great idea about how to inform a teenager, but only a teenager can say, my peers won't get that idea. It'll go over their heads. So this council's work is important to combine the experiences of teenagers with the advice of adults. And from this council, I and my compatriots will be taking that advice forward. We'll take that advice into our daily life and into our communities to better serve our communities and better ourselves.
So we're going to take your questions next, and I'm going to ask you to please limit your initial questions to the Teen Advisory Council, and we can let them answer, and then I'll move on to anything else you have. So are there any questions that you have for members of the Teen Advisory Council? Dana? Come on up, guys.
Hey guys, just a basic question. Can you tell us how often you met, what the time commitment was, and then also how you came to decide to focus on those two topics?
Initially, I think it was June when applications came out, and we collectively came together as a group for our first meeting. Every meeting, it was monthly, and it switched off. We had probably 3 or 4 in-person meetings, and then everything else was through Zoom. And throughout those meetings, we spoke with professionals on the topics. Like, for example, Daniel Fisher, he ran the gang, and he spoke about the statistics and what the overall impact was. He gave us percentages, graphs, and that really helped us. And then we all put in like kind of our vote on what our favorite, well, not favorite, but our most liked all together as a group, what we like to learn about. And me personally, it was reckless driving, just because I really liked the way the speaker talked and how he gave us bar graphs and pictures, and those have really stuck with me personally. Thank you.
Good afternoon. First, congratulations, and thank you for doing this. It takes a lot of guts to stand in front of this many cameras and deliver your experience, so kudos to all of you for doing this.
Tell me about it.
Honestly. But if you're 16 to 18, it's a little different, right? My question is this. When you learn something here as being on this board or council, and you try to have those conversations with your peers, how do you approach those conversations, and what do you hear back when you do have those conversations from your peers?
The first part of having these conversations with our peers is to figure out which peers the message is going to resonate with. You don't want to talk to your super straight A, never touched a drug in his life, doesn't even know what they are guy about substance abuse. So you have to first find the right person. And once you do, you approach it softly. You start with a casual conversation. Because you got to make whoever you're talking to comfortable first before you tell them that something they're doing is wrong. And then when you actually have the conversation, the most important thing to do is listen. If you only talk to them, they're never going to actually listen and internalize what you said. You have to answer their questions as they're asked and give them time to process, because this might be new information.
Another question for me is, we in the media have reported on, I think, far too many incidents where you're at a party, there's a fight that comes and people get hurt. Do you think we have an accurate representation of how often that happens in the media? Are you guys seeing that in your day-to-day, that there's fights that happen and they get out of control and ultimately people get hurt? Do you guys see that?
I have been in like situations where I have seen fights happen, and mostly they really do come from not being around the right group of people. So overall, I have not seen it recently, which I think that it definitely has gotten better over the past few months. Police have been doing a really good job monitoring that stuff. And social media they've been very good on monitoring social media. But in those cases, it's just best to just get out of where you are and just to find safe. But in order to find safe, you have to be in safe. So you have to get away from the violence and then find safe. Thank you.
Just one question. What could adults do better to help support you and your friends?
I think the biggest thing that adults can do, obviously this council is a perfect example of that, is just giving teens a seat at the table and a spot where they can more easily express what they're going through and use their voice. Because obviously each student is going to have a very unique experience from adults and also their own peers based on their background and their experiences. So creating spaces that give the opportunity to as many people as possible to express their feelings and what they're going through and what would help them, I think is genuinely the most effective thing adults could do to mitigate problems like teen violence and other things. Thank you.
I'd like to touch base on that as well. Another thing that adults could do to better support teenagers is just to listen, because some teenagers feel like it's more of like, oh my gosh, like I have to do everything perfect, when the truth is you're never going to be perfect. And some teenagers really do think that adults are there, parents are there to just correct them, but your parents are also there to support you and to understand you. And to create a judgment-free zone, you have to listen to your kid and listen to what they're going through. But in order to listen, you also have to understand. Thank you.
Hi, you guys. My name's Ashley. Again, kudos to you guys for public speaking. You guys are doing great. Wanted to ask you guys, kind of going off of the last question, lots have changed since adults have been a teen. There's so many different new challenges. Is there any way that you feel like adults could better reach out to teens with some of the messages that you guys have created?
Like as in your kid or other kids?
All kids. Any kids.
Okay, so overall, you're not going to be able to change someone else's kid or someone that you're not around 24/7. If you're a teacher and you see someone that is struggling, or if you're just out in public and someone is struggling, maybe just like pulling them aside, like not forcing it out of them, what is wrong, like, you know, but really trying to understand where they're coming from and why they're feeling this way, and then giving them resources on to not let that affect their day-to-day life, and maybe getting to their parents.
I would also like to add on, like if we're speaking more from like a mental health standpoint, like I think sometimes the mindset that you go into a conversation with is really important. I think parents, obviously you care for your kid, you want the best for them, and you want to fix everything that is causing a problem to them, and I think that causes like a fix-it mindset, but not everyone is always ready for solutions. Sometimes they just need to talk through things, so giving a space where they can just express what's going on, express their frustrations, express their feelings, and then just have you validate those emotions, I think can really be important, because in order to get to a level where they're willing to fix everything, they first have to feel, I mean, you touched on it earlier, they have to feel comfortable and have a safe space. I think that can be so important.
To touch on what they said too, teenagers tend to be quite obstinate, as many parents know. So the first thing you have to do if you want your teenager to actually learn and change their behavior is they have to want to. You need to, before telling them do this, this, and this, get them to actually think that changing that behavior is the right idea and a good use of their time. Because if they don't think that, they simply just won't.
One more thing to touch base on. If you are struggling to try and get your teenager to understand what their actions can have the consequences to, is to actually show them, like movies or clips or photos. If you do this, this is what could happen. And a lot of people don't believe, oh, this isn't gonna happen to me. It happened to this person, but it couldn't happen to me, which is not true at all. To really show them, like, this is the consequences to some of the actions that you choose to do. Thank you.
And I know you guys focused on these two topics, and we've also talked about mental health as well. Are there any other things that you think are at the forefront when it comes to teens struggling that you guys want us to know about, or adults out there as well?
I know we kind of touched on it earlier. We were talking about social media, but I think, like, I know I just said this, but the way social media is viewed is really important. I think a lot of parents sometimes can think that social media is the cause of problems, and although I'm sure it is in some situations, a lot of times kids will turn to social media as a result of feeling like lonely or struggling with other things, because obviously it's just constant scrolling, constant interaction. But it's not always that problems stem from them. Again, sometimes they do. It's often you turn to them as almost a coping mechanism sometimes, because it's like another world you can escape from your own. It's like instant. So I think that's another important thing, to approach social media that way, because I just think that can be misconstrued sometimes.
Thank you guys so much.
Here you go, guys. This is for you four and everybody that participated in the Teen Advisory Council. I'm so proud of you guys. You know, in my field, oftentimes we see the dark side of humanity and the dark side of society. And when I see people like you willing to step up and make a change for the better in your community, I'm just so proud. And since this is 250-year anniversary of our country, I feel like we're in good hands, so to go forward. So thank you so much. All right, now I'd like to open it up for other questions on other topics. Wow. Okay.
I have first a question on this topic.
Yeah.
How do you get buy-in with teens to want to serve in this way? What messaging do you give out? You give them candy every day? Like, what do you do to get the buy-in?
I don't know. You guys answer that. What buy-in did you have? Or what did we do to get your buy-in? Come on up. Come on up.
There's something pleasant about serving a community. I'm part of this council for the same reason that I volunteer for our library. It's a way to give back to my community that served me so well. Because we need to make sure that our decision-making is doing what's best for us and for our community. That's sort of the essence of this country. In the spirit of America 250, democracy is at the heart of everything we do. We need the more people we participate, the more effective our systems are. So by participating in this system with Ms. Rachel Mitchell, we've strengthened both the county attorney's office through its democratic process of listening to its constituents and responding to that stimulus of the community it serves.
So I have a very long list of generations that have served for our country, and I feel like it's always kind of been in me. I've always volunteered for church and put in volunteering hours wherever I really can and have the time to do. So I don't think that it's for all people. Like, it's not like, here's a little bit of candy, do you want to go to the military and risk your life? Like, not a lot of people will just be like, yes, I want free candy. It's more of, it grows in the heart, but I definitely do think that your support systems, like your parents, have a very big impact in how your future is going to look like. If you don't teach your child that you need to volunteer, you need to give back to the community, you need to pay your taxes, you need to pay your insurance every month, which I hate, but if you want lights on the street, you have to pay for these things, but it's also a little bit of common sense as they grow up. Thanks.
Spoken like some future prosecutors right there.
Yeah, you know, one of the things that I think we did well, I hope, is we listened, you know, to what you guys had to say, and we also had a number of subject matter experts. You mentioned Dan Fisher, who's the bureau chief of our gangs unit, come and talk, and we had other similar experts come and talk about a variety of topics. So we educated, but we listened. So.
Off-topic question first. In the Adam Schiff case, recently he pled guilty. There's been some reporting that the death penalty is off the table. First, I want to confirm if that is indeed the case. And this is somebody who, through this entire process and multiple media interviews and even in court, was asking to be put to death, yet, at least with what's been reported, will not be put to death, at least here in the county. Could you explain maybe what went into that decision?
Well, I don't want to talk about specific cases, but I will talk in generalities about how I make that decision. Obviously, I chose to seek the death penalty in that case, and that had to do with, the obvious nature of the offense, the presence of aggravators, etc. But as time goes on, cases, you get more information. And one of the things that I would consider in any case is the input of the next of kin. Unfortunately, as you've been reporting on, death penalty cases take a long time. And so their willingness to, hang in there for that period of time is something that we have to really educate them on and ask them about. Secondly, mitigation information becomes available to us. And so that mitigation information can be a number of things. Most commonly, I think what I see is mitigation either related to, mental health concerns is probably the number one. And so taking all of that into account is very important as to not whether we can get a conviction, but whether a jury will impose the ultimate penalty.
One more follow-up with that. It appears as though the federal government, the U.S. Attorney's Office, may have some jurisdiction, maybe hate crime-related charges. If they do file charges and seek the death penalty, is that something your office would support?
I mean, that's completely up to the U.S. Attorney's Office. I don't know that that's going to happen in this situation. Regardless, this is an individual who's not going to get out of prison.
Yeah. One more question from me. In the Peoria Centennial High School teacher situation, has there been any back and forth, any submittals that we don't know about from Peoria Police in that case that you all are reviewing? Any back and forth since we last spoke? So
the update on that case is the Peoria PD is still looking at the failure to report aspect of it. So that investigation's ongoing. In terms of the actual sexual abuse allegations, we continue to try to work with, there's a particular critical witness to make sure that that individual is interviewed. And so that those efforts are ongoing.
Thank you.
All right. So on the ballot scanner fiasco with the county recorder's office, I know the county recorder's office has retained their own attorney or their own law firm. Tell me about your concerns regarding that and not coming to the county attorney's office for that.
Well, let me separate those two out. So first of all, there is the ballot scanner issue. So that issue was presented to my office as a concern. And basically, because it could implicate, and let me emphasize, could implicate criminal behavior, I basically have one of three choices at that point. One is I could investigate myself, which would not be appropriate because it's tied into the duties of the recorder's office, and the recorder, as you know, is my client. The second thing I could do would be disregard it, which doesn't help either side. If you disregard alleged criminal activity, you could be ignoring a crime. On the other hand, if the person didn't do anything that is criminal, I would think, if I were in those shoes, that I would want an investigation to clear my name. And so I chose the third option, which is to go to outside counsel. And I chose Kent Volkmer, who's the former Pinal County attorney, for a couple of reasons. One is he has prosecution experience, and that would be important. But secondly, as a former elected county attorney, he also understands election issues because he would have dealt with both. And once I choose that outside counsel, my hands are off of the case. So it is completely up to Mr. Volkmer how to proceed and what conclusions he comes to, how to act on those conclusions. So that's that issue. The other issue you asked about is Recorder Heap choosing to obtain his own law firm. You know, obviously that's an ongoing litigation, but I will say this. The people of Maricopa County elected me to represent the departments of government. I am the county attorney, and so therefore it's my responsibility. When there is a conflict between two departments, such as the Board of Supervisors and the county recorder, it's incumbent upon me, and it's long-standing practice, to appoint attorneys off of a procurement list to represent those departments. And that's what I had done and intended to continue to do in this particular dispute between the board and the recorder. But what I would say to people who are, maybe in agreement with the particular law firm or the particular angle that is being taken, is that you have to think beyond this situation and understand that if this is allowed to stand, then in the future, somebody else who you may not agree with may choose a law firm that you do not agree with to represent government interests. I want somebody who is not a public interest law firm, who has its own agenda and course that they want to go. I want somebody from a traditional law firm who whose sole objective is to represent the best interests of the client. That's what I'm guided by, is representing the people of Maricopa County, the taxpayers, as well as the government department of Maricopa County. So that's kind of my thought process behind that issue.
And tell me a little about, you touched on this, but you mentioned that this would set a precedent.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me the concerns, play that out for us.
Well, if departments of government are allowed to just choose their own counsel, and they're allowed to choose somebody that is politically aligned with them, then people need to understand that when somebody from a different party is in office, they would have the right to do the same thing and choose somebody that's politically aligned with them. I don't think people have thought that through. I don't have the luxury of not being able to think long-term. I have to think long-term for the good of this county. And so people need to consider that.
It was pretty clear at the hearing, I believe it was on Monday, that now this goes to mediation, right? Tell me, are you hopeful that this can be resolved in mediation?
Well, I'm not really sure now. I haven't had a chance to fully read the granting of the stay that was handed down by the Court of Appeals just this afternoon, whether that will impact that as well as impact my own case. So that remains to be seen. I need a little bit of time to digest that. But I'm hopeful that the two sides can come together and work together for, the good of the people, so that we have an election that is, soundly run. And I have every confidence that that will happen. I am very big into election integrity, and making sure that people not only have election integrity, but they have confidence in their elections and that they'll be well run.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, just a couple questions. First, on the teen council, actually, I just wanted to ask, do you think the messages that'll come from that and the directives will make it to the ears of the people who actually need to hear it, the teens and maybe some of the parents that need to hear those messages?
I do think that. I think they did a really good job, and that was, that was our charge to them, if you will, which is to communicate to teenagers, and of course you also took into account parents in that situation. But I think it is effective, and I think it's more effective, not just the specific message, but the messengers, and coming from peers is going to be effective as well.
Thank you. And then back to the Peoria Centennial sexual abuse allegations case. The last few times we've asked about that, it's basically been that same update. We're waiting to hear from a critical witness. We're waiting to hear from a critical witness. From your view, does that case moving forward at all completely hinge on that element?
Critical means critical.
Thank you.
Hi, first starting with the topic of teen violence. We have teens here today. I think people across the valley and in Maricopa County are definitely listening more, especially over the last few years when it comes to teens and their concerns. Do you think that the message of accountability and what teens will face if they act out or commit crimes, do you think that message is really getting in front of them and also playing out in a legal sense in the courtroom?
Well, I do. I mean, just the last press conference, we talked about the numbers of cases that, I think it was 34 cases since the inception of the Preston's Law in September, that we've charged relating to juveniles specifically. I I was hopeful that it would get out just through word of mouth, but if it has to get out through example, I'm willing to do that if it saves a life. But I do think through not only that, but through other projects we've had, obviously the projects that the teen council has worked on, and also for example, the campaign report, don't repost, to encourage people to, this is not okay. It's not something to get clicks on. It's something to report to the police. It's very dangerous. And unfortunately, that's the sad legacy of Preston Lord, to serve as an example of what can happen when this kind of thing is allowed to go unchecked. So I do think the message is getting out.
Also, a message to parents. I've talked to advocates who say, maybe in one part of the valley they're seeing some improvement, in another they feel like they're seeing an increase in teen violence.
Mm-hmm.
What's your message to parents? Because, they're at the front of understanding this message.
Well, I think parents need to understand this is not unique to one part of the valley or even one part of the state. This is not unique to Maricopa County. It's not unique to Arizona. In fact, I just came back yesterday from a conference of prosecutors from across the country, and it's something that we're all talking about, is the rise in teen violence and how to address it. And so I think one of you said earlier, if you think that this can't happen to you, or if you think this can't happen to your kid, think again. It absolutely can. And I loved your idea of, pointing out examples of times where it does happen to other people, because people do feel invincible sometimes. And then when they see examples of people it does happen to, maybe it educates them on that.
2 other questions, and I'm hoping you can comment on them.
Mm-hmm.
One being the Ian Mitchum case. We saw that case end in a mistrial in the penalty phase.
Mm-hmm.
What happens next, and has there been a decision made on if prosecutors are going to go back and retry that phase?
Yes, I have made a decision on that. Now, obviously, it's not a retrial of the guilt phase or the aggravation phase, but we are going to be retrying the sentencing phase of that case.
Okay. We have also been in court in the Cunningham case as well, and this week there were some major concerns raised about disclosure. A witness being on the Brady list, Tier 1, for example, and defense attorneys are saying they did not know. Now they're requesting more hearing dates. Is there any comment you have on how that's playing out in court?
I'm monitoring it. What I'll say is, while it's ongoing, I don't really want to comment. Obviously, when we're through that, I'm getting regular updates. When we're through that part of the case process, I will evaluate the case to see how we go forward. Not only how we go forward with the case, but if there are any things that we within our office need to address.
Does that include if disclosure was done appropriately?
I'm going to look at anything that needs to be addressed and fixed, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.